A player is logging into an online video game under the username Outboxer0-09. In the game, he is dressed in a black trench coat that blows with the wind and has turquoise eyes. The moment he logs in, he receives a message on the global chat from another user, which turns out to be someone calling him a no-life. In the real world, he types on his keyboard, asking if anyone else is online. Afterwards, another message appears in the chat taunting Outboxer0-09, saying that he'll end up in second place this month. This causes our protagonist to let out a devious smirk before flexing about his online character's previous monthly rankings. It turns out Outboxer has been in first place for the last 22 consecutive months. The game they are playing is called Legends of Heroes 2, and despite being 10 years old, still has active players due to how well made the game was. The game's system allows players to choose characters from within the game and nurture them to each user's specific preference. Additionally, achievements are used to rank characters each month, which today happens to be the day these rankings are announced. As Outboxer enters the Hall of Fame, he is greeted by a girl with orange hair and cat ears named Reincarnates, who wonders if an upset will happen this month. He is also greeted by a pinkish-haired female named Yellowstorm, who thinks she'll take the #1 spot this month. Our protagonist then whips out his glasses to look sophisticated and strikes an anime pose before insulting Yellowstorm by saying her eyes are larger than her stomach. This causes them to bicker in the hall about how the rankings will end up this month. The results then start appearing on the screen, and to no surprise, our protagonist takes the top spot. As the three stare at the screen, Yellowstorm gets completely shocked, while our protagonist begins to blush and laugh. They then exchange words on the global chat as our protagonist taunts Yellowstorm by calling her rank 2. She responds by saying the gap was only 800 points. Our protagonist continues to taunt her, to the point where she uses too severe profanity and is censored in chat. Reincarnates tells them to calm down or they'll get chat restricted, but both players then decide to log out, which causes everyone else to celebrate that they left. It turns out they have not logged out, but something strange is happening. The system mentions that users Kang Jiho and Hong Yuhi have both now entered Pleiades. Suddenly, in some building, our protagonist screams in pain as he can barely breathe. Things get blurry as he wonders where he is and stares at his arm. He continues to feel dizzy and wobble before getting up to walk. As he wonders if he caught a cold, he stares and sees his video game character's reflection. He wonders if that's actually his character and a younger version at that. Then he realizes that he's staring at a mirror and that it's actually him. Suddenly, he feels static in his head as information starts flowing into his brain. Pleiades, a fantasy world where legends of the game reside and nations wage wars amongst each other. A world where demons and angels have both descended upon the land. Our protagonist has entered this world as a frail young boy. His face is that of the character he chose to play as, the second son of the swordsman-filled Bayer household, Jude Bayer. Knock knock. Someone refers to our protagonist as a young master and requests to enter the room. He is surprised by how other people address him in this world, as the maid continues to try and enter the room. After she enters, our protagonist finds himself feeling awkward and embarrassed. The maid named Maya apologizes for entering as she assumed he was not in here due to getting no response when she called for him. He is having a mental workout trying to remember that her name from the game was Maya. He then tries to act calm and cool and says that her entering his room is no big issue. He continues to try and calm down as he asks her what she wants. The maid tells him that she has been looking for him due to the fact that the girl he is engaged to is visiting the house. In the drawing room, we see a familiar pink-haired girl shouting about how long Jude is taking. As she continues to act out the guard, Dahlia, behind her begins to feel uncomfortable. As they walk in the hall, our protagonist remembers that his character's fiancée is Cordelia Chase, who comes from the Chase household, which is known for their magic. Our protagonist remembers that Yellowstorm used to play as Cordelia, but believes he is getting married to the real Cordelia. He tries to forget and ignore his fluttering heart as he thinks it is important to meet more people to understand his situation. As they enter the room, Cordelia is staring at them. Our protagonist then begins to introduce himself to them by his username, before switching back to his character's epithet. As he raises his head, both characters get extremely shocked as they both realize it is Yellowstorm and Outboxer0-09 in each character's body. As they continue to stare at one another in shock, they then shout at one another asking why the other has come to this place. In his mind, Jude tries to remain calm and wonders why Yellowstorm is here. The maid then tells the two to sit down with one another first. An awkward feeling sets in the room as they sit across from one another. Jude decides he should test her first, and then he seemingly begins to murmur some gibberish. He has a lot to ask her, but he cannot with so many people in the room. He believes that they should find a private place to chat. Suddenly something clicks in Yellowstorm's brain as she finally gets the message. The gibberish Jude mentioned earlier turns out to be gamer lingo for cooperation time, and Jude is telling her to meet him at the garden at 12 a.m. Yellowstorm taps the desk to signal that she got the message and then tells her guard that they are leaving. As she leaves, Jude knows that they will meet again soon. His maid tries to question what's going on, but Jude says that everything is fine. In reality, he has almost lost his mind and thinks about how even the way Cordelia spoke was like that of how Yellowstorm used to speak. In a beautiful panel, the sun sets slowly as the day transitions into nighttime at the garden. Jude stands out in the garden, noting that this truly is the north due to how chilly it is. As he wonders if Yellowstorm will make it her properly, he spots her scurrying around in the distance. He walks up to her and calls her by her gamer tag as we see her with a cape drenched over her. She pulls off the hood and calls him Outboxer 0 to 09. As they walk towards one another, Jude asks if he can say something he's wanted to say since that time they were in the room. She responds by saying she's pretty sure she knows what he'll say. He asks her if it happened to her as well, and she says it did. They then start to talk seriously about the situation. Yellowstorm talks about how she woke up in Pleiades 2 days ago and wonders if it was the same for him as well. Jude struggles to recall exactly how many days it has been, which causes Yellowstorm to ask him why he is so unsure. Jude mentions that he can't help it. His character Jude was born with an illness where there are 9 block yin pathways due to abnormal levels of yin qi. There are problems with the blood vessels, which limit qi circulation, making the body very weak and unable to use mana. He then starts wishing that he could have been reborn as a more overpowered character instead. He then tells Yellowstorm that according to his maid, he was apparently very sick 2 days ago and saying many weird things while unconscious. Yellowstorm then says it's no wonder why his memory is so foggy. She then angrily asks if he is even off in the head right now. They met up earlier in the day, so why did they have to secretly come out here to talk? She mentions it was difficult for her as a lady to sneak out at night without her parents knowing. Outboxer then yells back saying he can't be the one to sneak out due to his illness, and then asks since when was Yellowstorm a lady. Yellowstorm then responds by saying since she was born, which leaves our protagonist very confused and shocked that she is a girl. Then Yellowstorm questions if Outboxer has been a boy the whole time. Outboxer responds by saying of course, to which Yellowstorm says that she's always been a girl, but never said anything in the game as it didn't seem necessary. Turns out Outboxer always thought Yellowstorm was a guy due to how she would always say Roger, which he thought was a military men term. Outboxer then clears the air and tells her not to be mad, since there was another reason he called her out here. He mentions how his father, Count Bayer, has taken his brothers and vassals on an expedition. This means the castle is super empty, lowering the chances they'll get caught. He's almost certain as he recalls sending them off. He stops and wonders how he remembers sending them off. As he thinks, Yellowstorm then asks him if he's like that as well. They've spent so much time on this game and finally became the character they know life for so long. Yellowstorm continues that at first she felt as though she was just inside the game, but as time passed, she began to feel as though Yellowstorm was her previous life. Her previous memories and Cordelia's don't even clash much at all, and that calling Count Chase her father felt natural. She also notes that even Outboxer referred to Count Bayer as his father naturally. Outboxer then starts to realize he actually does say it naturally, and that they did not just come into the game, but rather this has become a new reality. He realizes that if this is now the true reality, then there is no way for them to return home. Yellowstorm continues that of all places they could have ended up in, it just had to be this world, Pleiades, which is destined to be destroyed by the great summoning ritual. Jude then realizes his character might not be so bad after all. Yellowstorm then wonders how he can be laughing and happy about that, but he tells her that they both are off-meta characters, and it just so happens he is a warrior and she is a magician. She finally realizes what he means, as they both won't have a problem sharing items with one another due to differences in attributes. With that, they both suddenly are motivated again as they are starting to think of this world as a game. They both then decide to work together as a party, with Jude doing so for the first time in 5 years. He then taunts her by talking about how waking up in a game world is already insane, but now he's stuck in a party with second place. This causes her to angrily call him a punk. He then cheerfully tries to play it off by asking her to please cooperate with him, to which she is still mad about what he said earlier. He wags his finger and tells her to calm down, before he begins to talk about how it will be easy for them to clear his illness since this is reality and not the game. All they need is to find an item with harsh yang energy to clear the blocked pathways. He says that as long as he gets better, he'll be of great help to their party. She agrees to this, but also mentions that they'd have to find that type of item first, which happens to be nowhere within their vicinity. He then tells her there actually is one, and it's at the Belkeen Mountains. She mutters the words Belkeen Mountains before realizing he's talking about something called the Necklace of the Sun. He tries to shush her as she yells, as this is supposed to be a secret meeting. She covers her own mouth and then continues that he must be crazy as that item is dropped by Gang, who is a mid-game boss and would defeat low-level players like them. Jude then says it's fine as he's been brainstorming. She asks if he has a solution yet, to which he thinks for a moment, and then says let's go on a date. Yellowstorm pauses and then yells what, to which Jude continues that they should go on a date and carriage. On the next day, we see that a beautiful carriage has been prepared. They both step out, with a Yellowstorm exclaiming about how the weather is quite nice today. Jude agrees as he mentions how the beautiful flowers made it worth riding a carriage all the way out here. He then trolls by saying they are nowhere near as beautiful as Cordelia, which causes her to try not to curse and eventually says she dislikes him teasing her like this. He laughs as he tells her to meet him over there as the view looks pretty. As they walk, Cordelia starts cursing and talking about how she cannot do this, to which Jude tells her he does not care if she curses, but she needs to avoid doing it around others. He then tells her not to walk too fast or the guards will know they are trying to get away. As they get further away, she tells him to just spill his plan already on how 2 level 1s can capture Gang. We then get information on the Necklace of the Sun, which is an item that suppresses evil and is dropped by Gang of the Red Moon. He is a powerful monster that appeared in the second half of the video game and is sealed in the Sun God's Temple at the Belkeen Mountains. Jude then says he never mentioned capturing the creature. She then questions what he means, to which he tells her not to sweat the details and asks if she brought the items he asked for. She tells him of course, and that she's had a tough time walking due to having to hide them under her dress. He then tells her that he trusts her and refers to her as my Yellowstorm, which riles her up again. She asks how this will be done, to which Jude talks about how this area matches up perfectly with the game and then points at the cliff, and tells her that once they get to that area, he needs her to carry him and jump off. Cordelia is confused as the temple will show up as long as they wrap around this flower bed and go down. She asks why they have to jump off, to which Jude asks if she's ever gone through the west path in the game, and that this is a shortcut. Cordelia then lies and says she definitely knew this and was just testing him. He tells her this is the best path as they can ditch the escorts, and that the two will struggle to catch up to them since they both don't use magic. He does mention that this will be dangerous and there should be some insurance in place. He tells her he'll only say the plan if she promises to not curse while listening to the whole plan, to which she says fine. He then whispers in her ear and says that after they jump off, she uses the fact that they are engaged too. The rest is undisclosed to the reader. She shouts in shock at the plan. She asks if he is crazy, to which he asks if she has a better plan, especially since the escorts are starting to notice something is wrong. Cordelia grabs at her hat, but cannot come up with an alternative. She curses again before agreeing to his suggestion. They then grab hands and jump. The 2 guards are in shock as they shout for the 2. Cordelia in high heels yells flight as the 2 then descend down the cliff. She lands softly on the ground with a magic circle underneath her. Dalia shouts at Cordelia and tells her to come back up as it is dangerous. She continues to call for her before Cordelia screams back that she wants to spend some time alone with Sir Jude. She then shouts to reassure Dahlia that Jude won't do anything weird as he is a gentleman. Cordelia continues that they'll be back before dinner. Dahlia continues to question when the 2 got so close and worried that it is too dangerous before Maya grabs her by the shoulder and vouches for Jude that he is a gentleman. Dahlia shouts that this is not the issue as the couple takes their chance to run off. Later, after having gotten away, Cordelia shouts and questions why she had to do that, having to carry him and be the one to make the excuse. She questions why he gave her all the embarrassing tasks. He tells her to stop being difficult as he is the one with an illness. He then asks her how he was supposed to carry her with his thin arms, to which she tells him to wait and see what will happen when he's finally cured. He also mentions he had to do embarrassing things too, as he wrote the letter to ask her out on a carriage date in front of Maya, who suggested adding things like to Miss Cordelia, who I dearly long for. He then notes that it's actually not as bad as what Cordelia had to do, to which she asks if he wants to die. They then decide to just move on. 10 minutes later, we see that Jude is out of breath and nearly out of pee. Cordelia is dumbfounded as she asks if he is all right. He dizzily says that he is not because of the 9 block-in pathways. She thinks to herself that he really is frail. He then asks her if she can carry him. He then asks again if she can carry him as they are in a hurry, to which she finally agrees and then tells him that he does not need to talk anymore. Narrator interjection: this is low-key cute. He then tells her not to say things like that as it raises his death flag. They then arrive at the cave. Cordelia is gasping as she mentions it looks exactly like he said, and mentions that she is exhausted and asks if they are even going in the right direction. She hears no response and notes that this is like carrying a corpse. She then stares up in shock as she has finally seen the temple of the sun god. She then talks about how Lisagang was sealed here after being beaten by the Sun Paladins. Jude stares at her as she talks about how she is feeling it. He asks her what, to which she asks if he remembers the game dialogue. He asks if she means the dialogue would talk about how one can feel the divine power of the sun god just by being here. She says yes, and that the sensation is just like what the text on the screen said, as she is experiencing the feeling herself right now. She also feels as though her heart is getting cleansed. As Jude stares at her, we see that his heart makes one louder beat. In his mind, he wonders why his heart is making these sounds, as Cordelia goes on about how this is exactly like the game and no monsters are around due to the divine energy. She then starts to sing about the place, while Jude tries to reassure himself that his heart only got flustered because Cordelia is supposed to have a beautiful appearance and not Yellowstorm herself. Cordelia then shouts that she found where Lisagang is sealed. She then mentions how this is just like in the game and how the whole room was built just to contain Lisagang. She then wonders about how they are going to face off against a demon who took this much effort to seal, and if they can actually beat him. Jude then smiles and says yes, and then asks for her to hand over the items that he requested. She says Roger as she begins to pull up her skirt to grab the items. As she does so, she then tells Jude to look away as they are hidden under her skirt. She tells him that if he peeks he'll be dead, to which he just says aye aye. Suddenly a bunch of items start appearing. This causes him to tease her by calling her Corleman, a parody of the anime character, which makes her call him ungrateful. He then holds onto a red potion bottle and talks about how glad he is that the Chase household are great at crafting potions. Cordelia tells him to keep piling on the praise, to which he continues stroking her ego. He then puts a paintbrush through the bottle and gets ready to show off his skills. He is seen drawing a sort of ritual circle using the magic potion as Cordelia watches. She then notes that this is Velastin's magic circle. This was the greatest work of the barrier master named Velastin, who made a name for themselves in the second half of the game. It is a seal that runs the risk of being unable to bind a demon that it has bound before and has a 3-minute time limit, but it scales with the demon's strength very well, making it a powerful demon confinement magic circle. Cordelia finds it insane that she is able to memorize all this, as Jude announces that he is done. He then shocks her by saying it is now her turn. He then asks her just to be sure if she knows what he just drew, to which she says she does. He then asks if she knows how to draw it herself, to which she shouts of course, but it's very obvious to Jude that she's lying again. He tells her he cannot activate it due to his illness, so she must do it. He then mentions that since she is level 1 she won't be able to hold Lisagang for the whole 3 minutes, so they will be using the magic from the seal of the sun god Solari. They will be using the power of the temple that seals Lisagang to call upon his real body for just a moment. She then agrees to this and asks if 1 drop is enough to activate the seal, to which he tells her yes, and to not want herself too much. She notes that it is weird to see him this concerned before a drop of blood descends on the seal, and she shouts activate, which causes the seal to light up. Jude starts to talk about how it's working as the seal is lighting up before the temple starts to shake, and Cordelia begins to feel a sharp increase in the mana density. She notes that the seal of Solari will break as a red dot surrounded by chains starts to appear. We begin to see hands appear, and then a large figure with wings and chains surrounding it can be seen. Jude notes how the magic circle is working as Lisagang is all chained up. He believes this is a success, but as he stares at the beast he feels as though the pressure will crush him. Jude then wonders if Cordelia is doing alright and glances over at her. He is confused to see that she looks starstruck. He calls for her, to which she begins to shout, "It's here, it's here." She then shouts that it's on its hip, the creature's hip, and we finally get to see the necklace of the sun. Jude questions her enthusiasm about getting the loot, before she tells him that she'll lend him her things to grab it. She tells him to hurry as it is still asleep. He is carrying some sort of flowered wand and starts to reach for the necklace, as Cordelia is shouting encouragement to him from behind. She says that he's nearly got it before a shadow descends upon them. The creature's red eye stares at them, before we see the creature's whole face and figure. Both our protagonists have gone completely silent, before they shout that they've been caught and to run. As they run, the beast screams at them, calling them blasted insects. Jude trips and falls, and wonders why he still has all this power when he's sealed. Jude, meanwhile, has no strength left to even put in his legs and stand up. Cordelia then shouts at the demon, saying it's chained up and can't even move, and for it to stop messing around. She then activates a magic circle and shoots a magic missile at the creature directly into its face. This completely stuns Jude, and he asks her if she is insane for provoking the demon. He stares as rays of light move upwards around Cordelia, which confuses him, until he realizes she is leveling up. Normally in this game, Lis Gang was a powerful demon that people would only face in the second half of the game. In the original game, it's so powerful they wouldn't even be able to land an attack before getting a game over. Right now it is possible due to the shortcut of using the Velastin's magic circle, and just by doing 1 damage to the creature means enough combat experience to level up. The two gamers then began using their gamer brains to calculate how much experience they could farm doing this. They then each let out devious smirks. As the demon begins to scream, "How dare you!" he gets shot with another magic missile. Cordelia shouts magic missile again with a demonic look on her face. She then begins to spam the move in front of Jude. She is now excited about leveling, as she initially only planned on grabbing the item and leaving. Jude thinks to himself about how much of a punk she is, hitting the demon everywhere apart from the chains. Lis Gang is furious and calls them weaklings and tries to express his anger, before Jude gets up and decides that he will level up as well. He has the necklace in his hand and says he has the blessing of the sun god. He lets out the prayer of the sun god as the necklace shines in his hands. He notes that he cannot use magic due to the illness and cannot use martial arts due to blocked key circuits, so he decides to fight with gear. He then taps the demon with the necklace, which actually raises his level by 1. The demon continues to call the 2 insects as Cordelia is impressed Jude remembers the prayer. He then tells her that this seal only works once, and this is their only chance to beat up Lis Gang. The time remaining to do so is 1 minute as they stare at the demon. We then hear from out the temple multiple magic missiles and blessings of the sun god attacks as Lis Gang continues to shout at them. The magic circle begins to fade, and Lis Gang shouts that he has remembered their faces and engraved their souls into his mind as the red circle continues to close. As he is taken away, he vows that on the day he is freed, he will make them feel great pain. As he is talking, the 2 shout that they want to land 1 more shot as he yells at them to listen. As his head is barely poking out of the circle, he calls in extras and promises that he'll be seeing them again and that he'll definitely find them. The 2 mock him by saying it was a pleasure to meet him and see you soon. In the temple, the red circle has nearly faded away as the 2 stand inside. Cordelia begins to smile before telling Jude that she knew he was insane. He mentions that she isn't right in the mind either. She asks if his 9 blocked pathways are better yet, to which he says that he'll slowly have to melt them with the sun god's power. She tells him that they leveled up a lot and should be heading back now. He grabs her by the shoulder and says, "Let's go." She asks him what he thinks he's doing and if he wants to get hit, to which he asks for a little support. His legs are seen to be shaking as he struggles to walk, which causes her to say that this is at least better than having to give him another piggyback ride. The night they both returned home, however, they were both put under house arrest for 10 days. The 2 items our protagonists have are then displayed on the screen, including their abilities and star rankings. Later at the house, we see Jude is laying sprawled out in bed. His body has gone stiff from barely running 10 laps due to his blocked pathways. He then looks up with his eyes at the necklace and notes that his body has definitely been improving at least. He notes that if this is now his reality, the main goal has to be survival, as the ending of the game was that Pleiades was destined to be destroyed by a great summoning ritual. It is the grand advent of demons and angels known as Armageddon, and it must be stopped. He notes that to achieve this, a weakling barely able to run 10 laps and a 1-star magician are seriously lacking. He closes his eyes and thinks that despite the rush, they still need to hone the basics. He then thinks about Cordelia and remembers that it's been a week since getting the necklace, so only 3 days left of house arrest. He realizes that he has to be ready for what is next as he reaches for the necklace. We then cut to Cordelia, who gets a chill up her spine and wonders what that bad feeling was. She then remembers Jude taunting her and wonders if he is scheming something right now. There then is a knock on her door, and she then tells the person to come in. Dahlia is excited as she mentions that Cordelia is getting a letter from the young Jude. She thinks about how Jude is nothing like a gentleman, before wondering why Dahlia is so excited. Dahlia mentions that it is great news since she thinks Cordelia has lost her appetite lately due to not being able to see Jude. Cordelia remembers eating just fine and even gaining 1 kilogram. Dahlia recalls when Cordelia jumped off the cliff with Jude that she felt worried sick. However, she came to realize that this was true love when Maya showed her a love story with the exact same heartwarming scene. Dahlia then mentions how Jude sent her a letter that one day to go on a date, and wonders how hot the letter he wrote this time will be as she tells Cordelia to read it quickly. Cordelia herself just wants to read it quickly to get rid of it. It starts off exactly the same way as the one before, which causes her to curse, and makes Dahlia think she is loving it. Cordelia wonders if this is one of those jokes where the first letters of the word mean something, before realizing there was something important in the letter. The final sentence was written in Korean and mentions the temple of Varuna. Varuna is the god of the veil and protector of secrets. In the temples of this deity across the continent exists a place where personal and state secrets can be shared. A flawless confessional, she wonders if there is something there, or if Jude just wants to go and confess his sins for making fun of her. Then again, he is a top gamer and wouldn't meet up for no reason. She then tells Dahlia she wants to meet up with Jude at the temple of Varuna. Dahlia finds it cute how Jude is requesting a date the exact day they both get released. She tells Cordelia that the young master must really want to see her, to which Cordelia just believes that Jude just wants to see a level up. Dahlia then tells her not to worry as this time, she will arrange proper alone time for the two of them. 2 days later a carriage can be seen riding through the town. Dahlia tells Cordelia to enjoy some cozy time with the young master, and that she will remain standing by here. As Cordelia walks away, Dahlia tells her to enjoy the date and says she will escort her back after 30 minutes. Cordelia believes this isn't a date but rather a 2-person quest. As she walks around the building, she looks for Jude. He then calls for her as he mentions she came on time. She then asks him how he managed to borrow the temple's confessional. He mentions that it was money and reminds her that he is the son of an earl. After some chit-chat, Cordelia asks him why he had called her since there seemed to be nothing around. He then tells her that there is actually a hidden event here. She asks him what he means, as she never heard about this even in the games forum. To which Jude mentions that he is the only one that knows and says that he does not upload hidden information, especially after he struggles so much to find them. She then asks him if he ever uploads strategies on the forum, to which he replies that he does, but only the ones that other people know. She then gives him a blank stare before shouting about how she knew it was strange. She is grabbing her head as she talks about how she always knew there was a reason she could not catch up to him, to which the Jude talks about how he is surprised as well as he did not expect Yellowstorm to share all her hidden info. She then turns around and asks him what is here and questions if it will be something that only benefits him just like the necklace of the sun. He tells her it is an item that will benefit both of them called the Dungeon Book. A book that takes the user who opens it into a dungeon sometimes in places like simulated space, other times to a real place. Clearing the dungeon causes them to learn a new martial arts or magic skill. Jude only knows that the martial arts skill taught when completing this dungeon was for footwork and never cleared the place as a magician. He mentions that she probably never beat this dungeon either, so that means she will be the first to clear it as a magician. She then gets shy and asks him if he's sure she will be the first. She then gets excited and asks him where the book is, to which he points to the right saying he has already gotten it. She puts her fingers on the book before praising him and asking if they should go now. He agrees to leave immediately. Dahlia outside sees flashes of light coming from the room. Light flows from the book, but slowly re-enters. After joining in the dungeon, Cordelia feels dizzy from the teleportation magic, to which Jude asks her if she is alright. She tells him she is not and is annoyed that he's all fine and dandy from this. As she leans on the column, he tries to help by patting her on the back. After a while in the dungeon, she finally feels alright. She then starts to look around the dungeon and asks Jude about it. He then reassures her that this is a simulated dungeon, so if they die, they respawn outside the book. She then tells him she was second in the server and to not underestimate her. She then pinches him and says that if he gets hit, he'll still feel pain, so why is he even reassuring them? He mentions that this is real-world experience without the worry of death, to which she replies that he always says the good things, and also questions if the blocked pathways are even getting better. He tells her it is little by little, and also says that he's reassured since she is here. This causes her to stare at him for a moment. She questions him on why he had to mention her, and he continues about how he is the planning type that seeks points through achievements and items, while she is a battle queen that gets points with raw damage. He mentions that Yellow Storm in the game doubles him in points if only monsters defeated were counted for points. He then tells her that since he brought up the book, she has to be the one to carry him through this place. She then asks if he called for a battle only to ride the bus. She does, however, agree to this, as she feels confident due to something she has brought. She tells him to turn for a moment as it's hidden in the same spot in the skirt as before, to which he agrees but kind of side-eyes this one. She pulls out 2-star items known as magic stones, and this means she can do more attacks than magic missiles this time. She mentions that when he called her over, she knew something was gonna happen, so she snuck these out. These are not regular magic stones, either, as her father, one of the great northern powers, and founder of the magician Chase household, made these. He mentions feeling secure thanks to this, but at the same time thinks this should be saved as a trump card. Cordelia continues showing off, to which Outboxer notes that she is just like the Yellow Storm from the game, showing off all her tricks from the start. He continues to tell her they are great before grabbing some papers out and handing them to her. They are 1-star magic circles of attributes like light and lightning. He notes that he cannot just hide behind and do nothing, so he drew these magic circles for them. She is surprised by the fact that he was able to memorize all of this and write it out. He then questions her if she's able to draw circles of this level, to which she again lies that she obviously can. He smiles as teasing her is so fun due to how flustered she gets. He then gets serious and tells her to inject the circles with some magic, as right now they are simply pieces of paper. She then starts to question his positioning, wondering if she has to stand on the front line as a magician. To which he continues his excuse of having blocked pathways. She then gets angry, wondering if he lost the necklace, to which he says he still has it, but it just says it takes a while to cure. He also pulls out mana potions and some armor for her. As they walk down the halls of the creepy dungeon, Cordelia talks about how the magic potions are nothing like when you play a game where you can just continuously use them. She feels super bloated drinking them, while Jude tells her good work as he carries a stack of magic-powered seals. He then asks if she really doesn't need the armor, to which she mentions her outfit is already to her weight limit. He tells her that he gets what she means, before staring at her and wondering if she is nervous due to this being the true first real-life experience. That time with the demon in the temple did not count as he was tied up, and they were too busy leveling up to worry. He then decides to relieve the tension by teasing her again. Before he can do so, a loud creak can be heard in the dungeon. They hide behind a column, as Jude gives her instructions. Cordelia tells him that the info he is saying is good to know, before Jude notes that as she says this, her face is stiff. Jude actually is worried as well, but knows he'll be fine due to him playing support from behind, and then he remembers that the attribute of the first goblin should be dark, before tearing up a magic seal to activate a light attack. The goblins become startled before. Jude acts like a Pokemon trainer and tells Yellow Storm that he chooses her. She responds by rushing forward shouting "Storm, storm, storm." She then activates a magic missile with her rose wand for 5 continuous strikes aimed at the goblins. Jude shouts at her, alerting her that reinforcements will come and that they are Earth attributes. She shouts back at him saying this is good info, but decides to herself not to rush things yet. Noises are heard from down the hall as Cordelia waits for the right timing, which is when the enemy gets into her line of sight. As the goblin steps out into the hall, Cordelia says the moment is right now before activating Slip and Fall Grease. She then shouts at Jude to follow up the attack, to which he activates a magic seal that puts light chains around the beast. After the battle, Jude mentions how the slip and fall and binding magic used to be Cordelia's specialty, and hands over a mana potion. Cordelia grabs the potion and makes a strange noise before gulping it up. Jude then turns at the monsters and deviously mentions how, unlike Lyskang, they will have to exterminate these creatures for the experience to flow in. Cordelia continues about how she wishes she had a double X potion. They then both level up. 5 hours later in the dungeon, Cordelia curses the dungeon and mentions how her legs hurt and wishes she didn't wear heels. This is unlike in the game when she only had to click a screen to move. Jude mentions how he's getting déjà vu and remembers a similar conversation to this. He then asks her again if she is tired, as they have been doing this for a while and it is her first real-life training. She twirls her hair as she stares at him. It's obviously been hard on her, as she then thinks to herself about how making it this far is actually a miracle, as the monsters are getting higher in level and with more attributes. However, Jude has made it much better, having planned well since he knows the terrain and the monsters' weaknesses. The dungeon strategy and magic spell support has been great for them as well, since he prepared perfectly and for everything necessary. In her mind, she wonders if he used to play support often, and if she had to be this good to have ever been ranked first. He stares at her as she is in thought, and believes she has numerous complaints but won't say them, as he can point out the flaws in each. He then clears the air and tells her they should rest before continuing. She says no to that, despite her legs hurting and feeling bloated from the mana potions. She also angrily calls out Jude for continuously getting the last hit, so his level is higher than his. He mocks her about how it's always been like this, the fact that she continues to remain in second place. She yells at him for being annoying, to which he then tells her apart from being second, she seems to be doing all right now. He then starts to laugh as he tries to tell her that the boss room is up ahead. She tells him to stop laughing and curses at him. He then mysteriously tells her that he never beat this dungeon as a magician, so who knows that the reward is. We then see both their stats on the screen. Jude is low on health and of course has no mana, while Cordelia Chase is full on health and mana. Cordelia wonders about how much time has passed in the real world, outside of this dungeon. She doubts that it actually has been as long as the time they spent in this dungeon. Jude does the math as he says 20 minutes in here is 1 minute outside. He then says it has been 20 minutes outside and asks her why she wants to know. Cordelia is nervous as so much time has passed, and remembers that Dahlia will come looking for her after 30 minutes. Jude then tells her that this is not something she needs to worry about. They both have arrived at the gate of the dungeon boss. Cordelia stands in awe as she mentions how this door is practically advertising the fact that it's holding a dungeon boss. The boss is known as the Fury Wolf. This shocks Cordelia, who wonders about how a dungeon full of goblins has a wolf as the boss. She also mentions how its attribute of lightning is completely different from the rest of this dungeon. Jude tells her she is correct, and also that the wolf is very fast, so the two of them will have to move continuously. He also mentions that there is one more thing as he opens his briefcase. He tells her to not attack and focus on dodging until he gives her a signal. She then angrily questions him if he plans to land the last attack again and steal XP. He tells her that he cannot try the same trick on this boss since they might not even be able to beat it, to which Cordelia says she knew he had been getting the last hits in on purpose. She brushes her hair back before asking him if the wolf is different from a normal Fury Wolf, since he is telling her to wait to attack. Jude pulls out a stack of magic circles and says that it's nothing, and that he just has to prepare something beforehand. The doors to the dungeon creak open and the two stand before the beast. It has yellow eyes and green aura exuding from it, and the tag mentions it is level 17. Its eyes are staring directly at Jude, to which even Cordelia notices this. Jude then notes that the beast is probably gonna attack him first. The beast's legs move forward as the two note that it is coming. It lunges at them, to which Jude shouts for Yellowstorm to dodge. He then shouts her name, and we can see she is laughing with a magic circle in her hand. She tells him that she already knew that this idiot beast only attacks in a straight line. She then tears the paper and activates double bind, and then the grease as well. The beast screams as it falls to the floor. Cordelia notes that the biggest worry is its quick moments, but that also is a weakness as the patterns are predictable. As she carries the wand, she continues that as long as they bound the legs, they can take him out. However, with their levels, this bind won't last too long. They have to be quick, as Cordelia shouts for Outboxer to hurry up his preparation. As he grabs at his magic seals, he tells her that he is starting his preparation before unleashing a lightning attack on the beast. He does another one before Cordelia starts to question why he is attacking when he told her not to. She then thinks about the fact that he is using lightning, and a chain then breaks loose. Jude then shouts at Cordelia, letting her know it's heading her way. She jumps to the side in time to dodge as the beast destroys a wall. Cordelia finds it peculiar how Jude had been attacking the beast, but for some reason it has taken no damage. The beast rears its head up as Cordelia gets the feeling that things aren't adding up. Jude then shouts at her, telling her it is still lacking. He then shouts for her to use her water attribute. She then pulls out a blue stone and activates an attack known as Water Pull, which completely zaps the wolf. He then shouts for another lightning attack and notes that this combination is working, and they only need to do it a little more. Another lightning attack then rains down on the beast. Cordelia is no longer focused as a rainbow of light rains down on the beast. She lost her focus due to that one Imagine Dragons song Thunder getting into her head. She then starts to sing the song in her head and wonders how this has something to do with the feeling of things not matching up. She then has a moment and reflects back on previous conversations with Jude. She then finally comes to the realization that they've been hitting a lightning beast with lightning, especially Jude. No matter how many times they hit the beast with the lightning attack, this should only lead to the beast charging up its strength. The beast lets out a loud cry. Jude then confirms her suspicion as he mentions that the beast is properly awakened now. She is angry at him as what he meant by preparation was to strengthen the beast. However, he tells her the only way to get the B-rank skill book was to awaken and beat the beast. She then yells at him for not letting her know ahead of time. He laughed and said it would have been no fun then. She stares at him with veins popping out of her head in anger. He then says to take care of the beast quickly so they can get the book, as she snatches the magic circles he offers her from his hand. She then tears them apart immediately to his surprise, as in the background the beast blows up in flames. She then proclaims that she will kill him. He then promises to let her know ahead of time next time as she continues to badmouth him for this. He tells her to continue cursing later after they deal with the issue at hand. He notes that the beast is coming before it, then lunges at them again. More info is given on the Fury Wolf, as it shares common traits with other wolf species such as leg strength and a bullet linear attack. Since this attack trajectory is so simple, all they have to do is dodge in time. The two players' level doesn't even matter that much, since as long as they have good control, this boss should be a pushover. However, sometimes games are different from reality.